Hey guys, and welcome to the Moms and Mysteries podcast, a true crime podcast featuring myself, Mandy, and my dear friend, Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Mandy. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good as well. We are closer and closer to the holidays, which is still, we know how calendars work, guys.
We do.
We know.
But at the same time, somehow we're still learning.
It's still confusing. I still get confused with the time changes. This is all, I'm shocked now.
The time change, yes. We haven't talked about that yet, I don't think. The time change.
Okay. Let's go.
The fact that it gets dark at 5 p.m. legitimately has ruined every good thing in my life. I just, honestly,
good thing?
Not to be dramatic, but I absolutely hate it. I absolutely hate this time change.
I know I'm getting older. Everyone's getting older. Nobody's getting younger. But I am affected at driving at night. It's a little harder for me. But it's always night now. And so I'm like, how do I? My husband will be like, do you want to go to the grocery store? You want me to grab something? And I'm like, absolutely not. I cannot see. I need you and your glasses to go do it.
I know. Well, and we were talking about even trying to find a time to record, the podcast. And I was saying to you, I've been so frustrated lately because, I love to take my little mental health walk either in the morning or sometimes I take it in the evening, especially if I can't do it in the morning, then I will put it off and try to do it later, at the end of the day.
Right.
But now I was telling you, I feel so frazzled because I basically have to go take my walk right when I bring my kids home from school, at 4 p.m. because at 5:30 the sun is setting. So I can't, it's just thrown me all off my entire schedule. And then I'm just ready for bed. By 6 p.m. I'm like, how is it not
done.
10 o'clock? I'm ready to go crawl in bed and not hear or speak to anyone, but you can't do that when you have kids who are trying to do homework at that hour. It's literally the worst. It's literally the worst.
I know. It really does affect moods. And I always, when we get to this time of year, I'm always thinking about people that live in areas where it is dark all the time and stuff. And I commend you because it really affects my mood and my ability to do things. I'm done. When the sun sets, so do I. I am over it.
Yes.
If you've got questions, they wait till tomorrow. I really, I say that's not true, but I don't want to be doing things.
Right. I feel like
I'm
I would
not
be
happy about it.
Like you were saying, though, in places that have extremes as far as the night and days, even in Alaska. I feel like I would hate it also in reverse, though. I wouldn't want it to be daylight 20 hours a day any more than I would want it to be dark that often. I feel like no, I don't like
but
that.
I have a sleep mask now, which I'm showing you with my hands on the screen, but it's changed my life. It really does help me sleep. And I never thought it would. And I'm obsessed with it.
I remember you mentioning that. I'm curious. I guess, I don't know. I feel like I'm not bothered by light when I'm sleeping. Is that the main thing, or is it supposed to be a comfort thing?
Oh my gosh, that'd be sad. It could be a comfort thing, but really it does block out all the light. So I'm not distracted looking at things in my room too, which isn't really a thing, but sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Where my kids are walking in the hallway. If I have an earbud in, I can't hear them and I can't see the light. So then I'm not oh great, when are they going back to bed, or did they get a snack, or what happened? I'm just oblivious.
Right. You're do whatever you want. I can't see or hear you.
Yeah, so that's really how I live my life now. But yeah, I would recommend looking into them. You might have to try a couple, but I mean, for me, it's great.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we got there.
Yeah, I think I have one, actually, a sleep mask. I think one of our sponsors from a while back, they sent a sleep mask along with the sheets that we got from them, and I stuck it in my nightstand, and I've never really tried it, but I do have one, so maybe I will. Yeah, maybe I'll give it a go.
Whirl.
Yeah,
give it a whirl.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the story that we have this week. It is a very complex and very interesting story. I feel like I'm still not entirely sure what I think about what happened here, and I know you said that you had some thoughts too, so I'm anxious to talk about them at the end. We didn't share our thoughts with each other yet. So when we get to the end, I'm excited to hear what you think happened in this story. On a quiet afternoon in January of 2007, residents in the rural town of Lawrence, Michigan, noticed smoke rising from the home of Todd and Linda Stermer. By 3:23 p.m., neighbors were calling 911 to report that the home was being quickly overtaken by flames and to send help as quickly as possible. Among the first to arrive was a neighbor named Mike and his girlfriend Connie. They had seen the smoke, and they immediately drove up the long driveway that led to the Stermer home. As they got closer, they saw that the Stermer's family van was moving back and forth near the house, and eventually it came to a stop, and Linda Stermer got out. She was visibly shaken and she seemed frantic, but she managed to tell the neighbor Mike that her kids were safe and they were not inside the home. Linda pointed towards her husband Todd, who was barely visible as he lay on the ground while smoke was swirling around him. Mike had actually walked right past Todd a few times already, but didn't even notice that he was there. Todd was wearing only a pair of boots and a pair of sweatpants that were actually pulled down around his legs, and his body appeared to be severely burned. So Mike grabbed some clothing of his own from his truck, and he covered Todd in hopes to provide some comfort and some protection during all this chaos. The first emergency responder to arrive was the Lawrence Township Fire Chief, Stephen Leach. He lived on the same street as the Stermers, so he drove to the home and parked his car on the grass out in the front. He noticed that the ground was what he described as being sloppy. It was just, maybe it had been raining. It was very muddy and just mucky. When he got there, the fire was already raging with such an intensity that he knew it had either been a very fast-moving fire or it had already been burning for quite some time. Stephen saw Todd Stermer lying on the muddy ground while Linda was crying out hysterically for help. He could see right away that Todd was in critical condition, but he quickly got to work administering first aid. At 3:30 p.m., the house was fully engulfed in flames when Deputy Sheriff Tony Evans arrived on scene. So he found first responder Stephen Leach working on Todd while Linda and several neighbors were gathering around. And at this point, Linda was actually on the ground lying over Todd and just yelling his name over and over again. As Deputy Evans looked around, he noticed a van parked behind the home that appeared to be running, and when he got closer, he saw what he thought was blood on the front driver's side. Deputy Evans helped the other first responders move Todd to a location further away from the burning home. There was an oil tank that they spotted nearby, and they were concerned that would become engulfed in flames, so they needed to get Todd, who at this point is unconscious, out of there. So they used either a plastic sled or like a plastic boat type of item to move him. But unfortunately, soon after being moved, Todd stopped breathing. They tried to perform CPR, but it didn't work, and Todd was ultimately pronounced dead at the scene.
An autopsy later showed that Todd had died due to a combination of burns and smoke inhalation. His injuries were consistent with Todd being directly exposed to flames rather than merely being near the fire. But there was something more. 4 lacerations on his scalp and 2 fractured ribs left the medical examiner puzzled and could not be attributed to one single cause. The medical examiner thought that Todd had suffered multiple blows or an impact from a vehicle, or both. Todd's blood did not test positive for any controlled substances, but his urine did test positive for hydrocodone, which is detectable in the urine for longer than blood. So they thought it was possible that he may have taken a Vicodin, which contains hydrocodone, several hours or even days before his death. Up until this point, the Stermers had lived a pretty basic life in Lawrence. Linda and Todd had been together since they met in 1989, while Linda was going through a divorce from her first husband. At that time, Linda was a single mom of 2 little girls named Ashley and Brittany, but Todd loved the girls like they were his own and treated them as such. The couple ended up getting married in August of 1993. At some point, Linda and Todd had 2 sons of their own, Trevor and Trenton, and later they would take in Linda's 2-year-old nephew, Corey, who they considered their own son as well. They lived in a rural home where Linda boarded horses on the property and Todd owned a business selling things like gloves and hunting attire. Right off the bat, Todd's death looked incredibly bizarre, if not downright suspicious. Investigators worked to figure out how everything fit together, from the fire to this van outside with blood on it to Todd himself being horribly burned and injured in strange ways. What did it all mean and exactly what happened? As they started to comb the scene, their attention quickly turned to the blood found on the front bumper and undercarriage of the family's van. Testing ended up confirming that blood was a match for Todd Stermer. A gas can was found lying in the front yard of the home, which certainly seems suspicious given the circumstances. 2 other gas cans were found stored in a nearby shed. According to Sergeant Scott Leroy, who was investigating the fire for the Michigan State Police, there was a smell of gasoline emanating from Todd's sweatpants when Sergeant Leroy arrived, so he also collected the clothing for testing. His sweatpants, which were pulled down around his ankles, his socks, and his underwear all ended up testing positive for gasoline. The clothing that was draped over Todd to cover him up tested negative, as did the clothing Linda was wearing.
The fire investigator looked at the house itself for more clues. Most of the destruction was determined to be in the living room, where both the floor and the ceiling were entirely consumed by the fire, which led them to believe that that's where the fire started. Sergeant Leroy determined that the fire was likely set intentionally, with gasoline being used as an accelerant. And this conclusion was based on several factors, including the rapid spread of the fire, the presence of gasoline on Todd's clothing, and the fact that the fire started in the middle of the day while there were 2 able-bodied adults nearby. However, due to the intensity of the fire, the living room floor had been obliterated, and it was impossible for them to test for the presence of gasoline there. They tried bringing a trained canine unit in to sniff out any traces of accelerant, but the dog actually didn't find anything. So Sergeant Leroy worked on exploring other possible explanations. He inspected the fireplace and the chimney in the living room, but he ended up ruling them out as potential causes of the fire. In the basement, he inspected the fuel furnace, and a canine unit did alert to the presence of an accelerant down there in the basement, but there was no fire damage in the basement area, and there was no evidence that the flames had actually even reached the furnace or into the basement. Lastly, Leroy considered that it could have been an electrical fire, but he quickly dismissed that possibility just due to the speed and intensity of the fire, which he said didn't align with an electrical malfunction. At the end of his investigation, Sergeant Leroy was convinced that the fire was a deliberate act, but there were still so many unanswered questions about exactly what unfolded at the Stermer residence that day. Todd's wife, Linda, was brought in for questioning multiple times. On January 7th and 9th, she told Detective Rott that on the day of the fire, her husband Todd woke up feeling sick at around 10 a.m. They had an argument that morning, which Linda said she didn't want their sons to overhear, so she told the boys to go ahead and get out of the house and go to the mall. She said that Todd was in the living room watching TV while she was in the basement doing laundry, and all of a sudden she heard a scream. And when she ran upstairs to check on Todd, she saw smoke and fire, so she instantly ran out of the house and got straight into her van to go get help. She did not have her phone with her, but the keys to the van were actually already inside of it. Linda said after she got in the van, she at some point saw Todd on fire outside in the side yard. So she attempted to turn her van around, but then all of a sudden she couldn't see Todd anymore. So she got out of the van and found him lying on the ground. Strangely, Linda also mentioned that Todd's grandmother had owned a home in Three Rivers that had previously burned down as well, while Todd was actually in the process of buying it. Later, when the police spoke with Todd's mom, they learned that it was actually 2 homes of Todd's that he had previously owned that burned down. The first was a home he owned in Portage, Michigan, and the second was that one in Three Rivers that he was going to buy from his grandmother. So that's super
That's a lot
strange.
of bad luck.
Yes, there's a lot going on, a lot of weird factors in the story.
For sure. On January 9th and 10th, Linda talked to private investigators that were hired by her homeowner's insurance company. She told them that on the morning of the fire, Todd was mad because she had forgotten to write down some purchases in their checkbook. At some point, she left the house and went to a nearby gas station. She bought breakfast and she filled her Chevy Blazer up with gas. When she got home, she told their sons that she would give them money to go to the mall because she and Todd needed to discuss some things privately. Linda said after that she did some chores and took a short nap, and when she woke up, she gave Todd medicine for an ear infection and then went down to the basement to do laundry. She said that she found a towel that Todd had put in the laundry hamper that smelled like fuel or gas. At some point, while she was down in the basement, she heard Todd yelling at her, and then he screamed. So she ran up the stairs and saw fire that spanned from their bedroom to the living room, but she couldn't see very well due to all the smoke and the flames. All she could see was that Todd was on fire, so she ran out the door and jumped in the van to get help. When Todd emerged from the house, he was completely covered in flames, and Linda said she tried to get him to lie down, but he wouldn't. Instead, he was trying to take off his pants and socks. Linda said that she knew that she needed help, so she got back in the van, but it was actually stuck in the mud. So she drove forward to try and get a running start, but it still got stuck. So she jumped out of the van again. This time, she sees Todd lying on the ground. The neighbors arrived shortly thereafter. When Linda was asked if she had any idea what could have started the fire, she said, quote, "I feel like maybe Todd yelled at me once during the day and told me that nobody else would ever have me. And I think maybe that he meant for both of us to, I don't think I was supposed to be here," end quote. Linda said that Todd had an oil lamp and candles burning in the house and that he would often have to bleed fuel from the furnace, which could explain how it got on the towel that's in the laundry room, and also possibly how it got onto Todd as well. 2 towels from the home's washing machine tested positive for gasoline. And we have a little interesting note here. Haley looked up to see what kind of gas goes into your furnace, and you can actually use diesel, but you can't use regular gasoline. Shortly after the fire, Linda hired a defense attorney named Jeffrey Getting as the police continued to investigate the strange circumstances that led to Todd's death. But we still have so much more to get into after a quick break to hear a word from this week's sponsors. Mandy, have you ever realized just how many subscriptions you have these days? It feels like every week there's something new popping up in my inbox. Between streaming services, random apps, and memberships I forgot about, it really all adds up. That's why I started using Rocket Money. With Rocket Money, I can see all my subscriptions in one place so I know exactly where my money is going. And just last week, I found one that I didn't want anymore, and I just made a few taps on the app and Rocket Money helped me cancel it, which means I have to make 0 phone calls, which is music to my ears.
Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. And the Rocket Money dashboard is such a game changer too. I get a clear view of all my expenses across my accounts, and I even set up a budget with custom categories to keep my spending on track. Plus, it shows me my monthly spending trends in each category, so I actually know where my money is going.
It really is so helpful. I also love that Rocket Money sends alerts when bills go up. So if there's anything unusual or if I'm getting close to the budget that I want to spend, they let me know. And with the new goals feature, it automatically saves for you, whether it's for a credit card debt, a new home, or really just building up your savings. It's like having a personal financial assistant. And here's the kicker. Rocket Money can actually negotiate lower bills for you up to 20%. They'll scan for opportunities to save, and if there's a change, you just ask them to handle it. And they'll even deal with customer service.
If you want to get a clear view of your finances and save without the hassle, Rocket Money's got you covered. Get started today and see just how much you can save. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/moms. That's rocketmoney.com/moms. rocketmoney.com/moms.
In the next 4 weeks, I have 2 weddings to attend. And while I have no clue what I'm going to wear to either one, I do know what I'll be wearing underneath, thanks to Honeylove. From my Honeylove bra to the Honeylove shapewear, when I want to look and feel my best, whether I'm heading to a wedding or to the grocery store, Honeylove has me covered. Literally.
Honeylove's best-selling crossover bra is so comfortable, you won't even feel the need to take it off. It has all the support of a traditional bra without any underwires. And the mesh detailing? It's comfortable and so cute.
I don't know about you, but I am so over bras that cause bulging in the back. And Honeylove really has you covered there too. Their V-neck bra has back smoothing fabric to prevent that dreaded bra bulge. Plus, it lifts and separates without any of that weird uniboob look.
And let's not forget about Honeylove's Superpower Short. It's shapewear that actually stays put with targeted compression that smooths and sculpts without rolling up or rolling down. Plus, flexible boning in the side seams keep it perfectly in place.
So whether it's for a wedding, Thanksgiving, or just an everyday confidence boost, Honeylove is the perfect +1 this season.
Treat yourself to the best bras and shapewear on the market and save up to 50% off site-wide at honeylove.com/moms20 this month only. Inventory is limited and the sale ends soon, so don't miss their best deals of the year. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. please support our show and tell them we sent you. Elevate your comfort, elevate your style, thanks to Honeylove.
And now back to the episode.
So before the break, we were just getting into really just the very first impressions of this house fire that has left Todd Stermer dead and Linda Stermer kind of struggling to explain exactly what has happened here. Through interviews with Linda and Todd's sons, the police learned that the couple had actually been on rocky terms for a while, and they often had fights over money. But the sons said that their dad was a great man and a great father, and that he was devoted to taking care of their family and loved spending time with them. The boys said that on the day of the fire, their parents got into a fight. But it wasn't about the checkbook. It was actually about Linda having an affair with her coworker named Chris. The boys said this fight was actually the worst they'd ever seen between their parents, and they all felt like this would finally be the fight that ended their marriage. In fact, Todd did tell Linda that he wanted a divorce this day. It was later learned that Linda's affair with Chris actually started in the summer of 2006, and they continued their relationship after Todd's death as well. On the morning of January 7th, Linda went to the gas station and bought a few items and about $11 worth of gasoline. The clerk later told investigators that they had noticed Linda was pumping gas, or what they thought was pumping gas, through the rear of the vehicle and not where the gas tank would actually be located. But they said they couldn't see whether she was pumping gas into a container or exactly what she was doing. When Linda got home from the gas station that morning, she woke up the kids and told them to get in her SUV and leave. She kind of nudged them very strongly to leave the house and go to the movies. The boys said they were going to just go say goodbye to Todd, but Linda stepped in and stopped them and just said, "No, he's sleeping. Don't go over there." So the boys just left the house as they were told. Despite the troubling evidence that pointed to foul play, investigators spent the next 2 years trying to piece together what actually happened. They were specifically focused on the couple's marriage and on the fact that Linda had run Todd over with the car at some point during this fire, which that's got to be like the number one thing. Like, how does that play into everything else that's going on here? Linda and Todd's sons told 48 Hours that anytime they would ever ask their mom for an explanation about, what happened, she would just become really emotional and she would start looking for sympathy and really playing the victim. And there were certain parts of Todd's death, including the part about how he got run over, that Linda would just refuse to even talk about. And she told her sons that they just needed to believe her story, but they said her story didn't really add up. And this led her kids to think that Linda actually might be hiding something and that there was a lot more to the story.
Meanwhile, Linda was still seeing her affair partner, Chris. He later testified that after the fire, Linda told him about what happened, and she said that she was downstairs when she heard Todd holler, so she ran to see what happened and found the whole upstairs engulfed in flames. Chris said that Linda was very upset when she was telling him about it. He also said that Linda told him that she had no involvement in setting the fire or causing Todd's death. During the 2-year investigation, the police spoke to many more people, including a former friend and coworker of Linda's named Kate, who said that she and Linda had been friends since 2006, and they carpooled to work together almost every day. Linda had confided in Kate that she was unhappy with her marriage to Todd because he was both physically and emotionally abusive. She also told her that she had contacted a divorce attorney. According to Kate, Linda had been discussing how she could get rid of her husband for about 4 months before the fire. She mentioned ideas like shooting him and running him over with a car. Kate had evidently called the police to do a welfare check at the Stermer home before because Linda had threatened to shoot Todd. Kate said that after the fire, Linda wanted to go back to the house to look for this coffee mug that may have traces of a sedative that she said she had planned on giving to Todd. So after finding out all about this, prosecutors felt like they finally had enough to charge Linda with 2 separate counts of first-degree murder, premeditated murder, and felony murder based on an underlying arson. Prosecutors believed that Linda wanted out of her marriage with Todd so that she could be with her boyfriend, Chris. So she either sedated Todd or knocked him unconscious while he was asleep. Then she doused him with gasoline and set him on fire. And after Todd was able to escape the burning house, Linda ran him over with their van to make sure he was dead. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot to accuse someone of. That's a lot to have possibly done.
Yes. Yes.
So Linda's defense attorney tried to get Sergeant Leroy's investigation thrown out, but the trial court determined that he had the proper qualifications to give an expert opinion as a fire investigator. He had been with the Michigan State Police since 2001 and had been working as a fire investigator for many years until he retired and started working for a private company. Furthermore, he taught fire investigation courses while he was employed with the state police, and he wrote and published literature about methamphetamine fires. Sergeant Leroy had over 559 hours of specialized training and 680 hours of continued education training. He testified 46 times as an expert fire investigator, and he was a member of 2 professional fire investigation organizations. All that to say, this guy seems to really know what he's talking about. He said that he followed the scientific method and the guidelines of the National Fire Protection Association while investigating the fire at the Stermer home. The trial court determined that there was absolutely no reason why Sergeant Leroy's testimony shouldn't be allowed in court.
Linda went to trial on January 5th, 2010. Prosecutors spent much of their time picking apart Linda's statements to the police and the insurance investigators, and they painted her as nothing more than what they said was a diabolical, scheming, manipulative liar. They pointed out that it was very convenient that the keys were already in the van, considering that the Stermer kids said their parents didn't normally keep the keys in the van. Multiple people testified, including neighbors who had been at the scene, of course, Sergeant Leroy, who was a huge part of the prosecution's case, Todd's mom, Linda's boyfriend Chris, and her friend Kate. Kate admitted on the stand that she and Linda actually hadn't really been friends since February of 2007 when they stopped carpooling to work together. Linda had transferred to the first shift, so they weren't even working on the same schedule anymore, and that actually upset Kate because I guess they had planned to move to the first shift together, and then Linda did it on her own. I don't really understand how, doesn't your job get to decide that anyway? So I don't understand what that is to be upset with your friend about, but that's what she said. So Kate also said that Linda owed her $5,000, and they had fought over it in late July of 2007, and that actually ended up in Kate being charged with assault, so not really sure what exactly went on there. Kate admitted that she herself had some mental health struggles and that she had been admitted to psychiatric institutions twice, including once in January of that year. Todd's mom said on the stand that her son suffered from significant financial problems, and she had loaned him money to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars over the years, and other family members had also loaned him money. She also talked about those 2 former houses of Todd's that had burned down before this one.
2 jailhouse informants testified, with one of them claiming she overheard a conversation between Linda and someone else where Linda said something about hitting Todd in the head with a frying pan and being very sorry. But upon cross-examination, the informant said she wasn't actually sure if the person she heard saying this was Linda. She also admitted to being off of necessary prescribed medication for her mental illness while she was in jail. The other informant testified that she heard several conflicting stories from Linda about her husband's death and the fire. But Linda did say that she and Todd argued that day and that she struck him in the head with something and intentionally set fire to the house with gasoline while Todd was asleep. This informant later said they suffered from memory problems due to a variety of psychiatric disorders that she was diagnosed with. She also admitted that she didn't really remember Linda saying anything other than asking for forgiveness, and said that a detective suggested that Linda may have hit Todd with something, and that's what put that idea in her head. Linda's defense told the jury that the fire was either an accident or it was actually set by Todd, not Linda, and they argued that Linda had accidentally hit him with the van while she was attempting to leave and get help. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
The defense brought up 2 previous house fires that Todd was involved with and showed that those were likely cases of arson at the hands of Todd himself. Shockingly, though, and I really am surprised about this, the defense actually did not have their own fire expert to refute what Sergeant Leroy was saying. So other than the defense's own argument, there was no actual evidence presented that suggested the fire was accidental or that it was more likely started by Todd than by Linda. Linda did not take the stand, but the defense called several other witnesses to try and discredit the prosecution's theory, but didn't bring up another fire expert, which is wild. For example, the defense brought in Linda's friend Kate's brother, who testified that Kate was untrustworthy and would lie to get revenge if she felt wronged by someone. Several jail inmates who spent time with Linda in jail testified that she never discussed her case with anyone while she was there. Other defense witnesses testified as to Linda's, quote, honest and peaceable nature, end quote.
Prosecutors closed their argument by saying that Linda had told lie after lie, and all the evidence pointed to her involvement and her guilt. They said that nothing pointed to Todd as an arsonist, and they stressed that the jury would have to have a really good reason to believe that Todd had set the fire. Otherwise, it's clear as day that Linda is a murderer who should be found guilty. The defense closed by emphasizing what they said was a weak and circumstantial case, and the prosecutors hadn't proven that the fire was intentionally set at all. But even if they did show that arson had occurred, they failed to prove that it was Linda who was responsible for it. They said that if the fire was deliberately set, Todd would be the more likely culprit because, as they put it, quote, who's had 2 other houses burned down before? Todd. Who do you think is more likely to do it again? The person who's never done it before or the guy that's done it twice before? They suggested that Todd had a motive to set the fire because it would get him out of the financial problems that he was in. And you can honestly see where they're going with this entire defense,
sure.
100%. Prosecutors offered the rebuttal that there was no evidence that the previous house fires Todd was involved in were arson and said that the defense's claims were just actually nonsense. However, this would end up coming up again later when the case was eventually appealed. Linda was ultimately found guilty of both charges against her. At her sentencing hearing, the judge vacated the premeditated murder conviction because it was duplicative, meaning that Linda was only guilty of felony murder based on underlying arson. She was then sentenced to life without parole for felony murder. Later, Linda's sons told 48 Hours that they believed the jury got it right and said they knew in their hearts their mom was guilty. But Linda's daughters, who were with a different father, still believed in their mom's innocence. Though multiple attempts to appeal Linda's conviction were denied, her daughter Brittany actually begged another fire investigator named Robert Trinkle to re-examine Sergeant Leroy's investigation, and Robert agreed. And he ended up finding that the evidence did not support Leroy's determination of arson, and that Leroy had relied upon insufficient evidence when he determined the cause of the fire. Keep in mind, we're talking about the same guy. We already discussed his credentials. So Now they're calling into question, they have this other fire expert who is saying, this guy who, has all these credentials and all this experience didn't do a good job on this investigation. That's what they're claiming. Robert also brought up what he said were deficiencies in Sergeant Leroy's methodology, such as that he had failed to acknowledge that many other factors besides an accelerant could have contributed to the speed of the fire, including the fact that there were exposed trusses in the home, there was a lack of drywall, and also they could have taken into consideration the type of wood that was used in the home's construction. He also said that the degree of damage to the home and the fact that the first floor had actually collapsed onto the basement made it impossible to eliminate every possible accidental cause, such as electrical fire, a candle, or an oil lamp. I'm assuming that what he's saying by that is that everything burned down, so there was nothing left, so there's no way to test or to confirm whether or not there was any other potential reason for the fire. And lastly, Robert said that Sergeant Leroy had failed to sample or move the debris in the basement, which was actually about 2 feet deep, since the first floor had fallen into the basement. And testing of that debris would have been useful in determining a cause, but they in fact did not test the debris.
Wow. Robert Trinkle later told 48 Hours that Leroy's investigation was, quote, absolutely inadequate. He said the evidence did not support the theory that Linda put gas on Todd and then set him on fire, and that he'd asked 30 to 40 firefighters and investigators for their opinions, and they all agreed with him. He said they actually laughed when he told them that somebody got out of a building after they had gasoline poured all over them. He suggested that the gasoline found on Todd's clothing was from cross-contamination from the neighbor Mike who came over. Mike recycled auto parts for a living, and the shirt he used to cover Todd had tested positive for gasoline too. Linda's clothing, however, did not test positive for gasoline, which they said would be really strange if she had been handling it at all. If you get gas really on anything, even just a speck, it's really just about impossible to wash it off and get rid of any and all traces of it. So this is obviously something that should have been on Linda to some degree if she had been dumping gasoline all over the place. He said there just wasn't enough evidence to prove that arson was committed. But if there was, it would point to Todd being the arsonist, not Linda. Furthermore, Todd's injuries confirmed that he was in the area of the fire.
In 2016, Linda filed for habeas corpus. Her claims included that the prosecutor had committed misconduct by questioning the credibility of witnesses, labeling Linda as a liar multiple times during the trial, and misrepresenting the facts in the case. She also said she had ineffective counsel because they had failed to object to this misconduct on the prosecution side, and they also failed to consult with their own fire expert. Lastly, she asserted that Sergeant Leroy's testimony as a fire expert was unreliable based on these new findings of Robert Trinkle, which she included in her petition. In June of 2018, a judge finally reviewed the petition and granted an evidentiary hearing on claims of ineffective defense and on Sergeant Leroy's alleged unreliable testimony. This hearing took place over the course of 2 days in October of 2018. Linda took the stand and talked about her experience with her attorney, Jeffrey Getting. She said that she begged him multiple times to hire an expert witness, and the family would even pay for it, but he just told her they didn't need an expert because they would just use the prosecutor's expert for the defense's needs, which,
what?
Oof, this is honestly really she's got him there. They should, how do you not hire your own fire investigator on a case like this?
And why would you not want to? That's what I don't get.
So bizarre.
Yeah,
super,
it really is.
Super weird. So furthermore, Linda said that her attorney just generally wasn't very available to her in the months leading up to her trial. She said they met a few times, but other than that, she could barely even get him to return her phone calls. Linda's mom testified and confirmed that the defense was asked to get an expert witness but refused, and also testified that Linda was often unable to reach her lawyer. Jeffrey Getting got on the stand and testified that he had determined he didn't need an expert because he thought, as an attorney, that Sergeant Leroy's testimony could somehow be used to support both of the defense's theories, which,
oh my gosh,
makes no sense considering the fact that Sergeant Leroy's testimony directly contradicts everything the defense was trying to say, which was that the fire was accidentally set. So even though, this guy, Jeffrey Getting, doesn't have a lot of experience with prosecuting arsons, or with working in arson prosecutions, he still did not consult an expert to assist him in preparing a proper cross-examination for Sergeant Leroy, which has to be the biggest fail, I feel like, of the whole trial, for sure.
Yeah. Sergeant Leroy did testify at the hearings, and he stayed consistent with the testimony he gave at Linda's trial. The state also had another fire expert, Jack Hooker, available there for the hearings. He said that he evaluated Leroy's investigation, and in the end, he agreed with the methodology used and said it complied with industry standards. Though he did not independently investigate the cause of the fire, he agreed with Leroy's determination of arson as the cause, but he testified that regardless of who set the fire, whether it was Linda or Todd, the physical evidence would appear the same to a fire investigator. Robert Trinkle testified that he, of course, did not agree with these findings and said that an expert would have been helpful to the defense if for nothing else than to assist in the cross-examination of the prosecution's expert. After this hearing, the court granted Linda a new trial after finding that the prosecutor had actually engaged in deliberate misconduct when it came to calling Linda a liar nearly 10 times, vouching for the credibility of at least 2 witnesses, and grossly misstating the testimony at trial. One of these instances of misconduct had to do with the prosecutors telling the jury that there was no evidence that the previous house fires Todd was involved in were arson. They said the defense's claim to that effect was nonsense, but it actually wasn't. According to a police report that was in the state's possession at the time of the trial, so they knew about it, the fire at one of the houses was definitely an arson, and Todd was regarded as a suspect. So prosecutors told the jury a lie when they should have been aware that the information was not true. I'm actually surprised that the prosecution didn't try to have that completely not even allowed into the case. So for them to actually have that information, it is introduced. That's very surprising to me. The court also sided with Linda when it came to having ineffective counsel in numerous ways, which denied her constitutional rights. They didn't rely solely on Sergeant Leroy's testimony, but they said that his trial testimony was clearly harmful to the defense because it contradicted Linda's non-arson defense, and that Linda's counsel knew what Leroy was going to say ahead of time, so there was literally no logical reason not to hire an expert of their own to refute what Leroy was going to say. The court determined that the prosecutors did not have an overwhelming case. Even if we assumed the jury believed that the fire was set intentionally, there was significant evidence that pointed the finger at Todd rather than Linda. Todd may have been motivated by money, anger, or a desire for revenge due to Linda's affair. They also said that it was arguable that Todd had arson experience and pointed out that his pants tested positive for gasoline while Linda's clothing did not. The court said this case represented a failure on the part of each of those responsible for a fair trial, including the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney. They all had a responsibility to intervene when misconduct was occurring. They said that unless a date for a new trial was set within 120 days, Linda must be unconditionally released. However, prosecutors decided not to set a new trial date, but instead to appeal the court's decision. Linda was released on bond in December of 2018 after serving 8 years behind bars. After being released, she went to live with her daughter Ashley and got a job while prosecutors worked on their next move. A year later, the U.S. Court of Appeals affirmed the district court's grant of a conditional habeas corpus, meaning that Linda was still entitled to a new trial. They said the evidence against her was not overwhelming, and she did not get a fair trial the first time. And we somehow still have more to get into after one last break to hear a word from this week's sponsors. So I've been looking for a gift for my sister for the holidays, and I have an amazing gift idea. The only problem is I'm afraid I may just keep it for myself. And that's because it's the ultimate care kit from LolaVie.
I totally see why giving this one away would be super duper hard. This kit has literally everything you need for healthy, shiny hair, and it is so giftable. It includes the best-selling restorative shampoo, conditioner, and that 10-time award-winning glossing detangler. Jennifer Aniston has done it again, and I love that she put this fabulous hair care in one bundle.
Totally. And the reason I was looking at this for my sister in particular is that she complains about her hair breakage. LolaVie shampoo and conditioner actually reduce hair breakage by 77% after just one wash. From personal experience, I know that my hair feels stronger every time I use it.
Same here. But don't forget about the glossing detangler. It's actually a multitasking miracle. It detangles, protects from heat, fights frizz, adds shine, and keeps your hair hydrated. And the scent? It's like a little spa moment every time you use it.
LolaVie's Ultimate Care Kit is perfect for holiday gifting, or just as a treat for yourself. So if you're looking to level up your hair game or need a gift that'll wow, the Ultimate Care Kit from LolaVie is it.
This holiday season, unlock Jennifer Aniston-approved hair at LolaVie.com. As our loyal listeners, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use code MOMS15 at checkout. That's 15% off your order at LOLAVIE.com with promo code MOMS15. Please note you can only use one promo code per order and discounts can't be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Your hair will thank you.
It's been a while since I've had a baby of my own, and some days I miss it so much. The baby cuddles and baby smiles, but when it comes to diaper rashes, not so much. I remember the first time my oldest had a diaper rash, I was really devastated. Here's this tiny thing totally dependent on me, and now she's fussy and obviously uncomfortable, and I'm supposed to have the answers. Well, with time and treatment, it went away, but what I really wanted was to avoid it altogether. And now, baby butts rejoice. New Huggies Skin Essentials are here, a brand new dermatologist-approved line of diapers, wipes, and pull-ups training pants, all designed with baby's sensitive skin in mind.
The Skin Essentials diapers feature the Skin Protect liner, which helps take care of ick and stick that can cause rash. The wipes are thick and have zero harsh ingredients for a great, gentle clean. Pull-Up Skin Essentials has got your big kid covered too, with a training pant that's ultra soft and breathable to help protect sensitive skin throughout potty training. Whether you're a first-time parent or a seasoned pro, make it easy on yourself and your baby with Huggies. Learn more at Huggies.com. Once again, head to Huggies.com to learn more.
And now back to the episode.
Okay, so I don't even know where to begin with where we left off in this story, but we were talking about the possible murder, possible mysterious, strange death of Todd Stermer, who died after his home caught on fire while his wife was there, and then somehow he ended up getting run over with the family's van. Still aren't really sure how everything kind of played together. His wife, Linda, was convicted of his murder, but was granted a second trial after it was found that she may have had ineffective counsel and that there were potentially some lies told in the trial that affected the outcome. So in February of 2020, Linda actually broke her silence for the first time and spoke with Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours. Linda's kids were also interviewed for this episode. Linda said that Todd had a bad temper and he was physically abusive and extremely jealous and possessive. Her daughter Ashley, who, as we said before, was not Todd's child, said that she remembered the first time her stepdad had been aggressive with Linda. She specifically remembers this incident where he was throwing a basket of clothes, like a laundry basket, at Linda, and later on that same night, he was being belligerent after he drank alcohol. Linda's other daughter, Brittany, said it was very scary for them at the time because they were very young. Ashley said when she was around 11, she started to speak up when Todd would have these outbursts against her mom, but then he would just direct his anger at her and he would say really cruel things such as, "You're a two-legged dog just like your mom," which, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She said that Todd would hit her with his hands, belts, and horse reins, and that he once even hit her in the forehead with a phone. Linda said that Todd didn't really get physical with her on a regular basis, but it did happen on occasion. And one time he even left a bruise on her cheek, but then he apologized and sent her flowers the next day to make up for it. She said she didn't know until after they were married that Todd actually had 2 convictions for misdemeanor drug charges, a DUI, and a conviction for misdemeanor assault and battery from when he was 18. The Stermer sons all said that they had never witnessed their dad hit their mom or their stepsisters, and they never saw any black eyes or bruises on them either. Trevor said, quote, "Our father definitely had a temper, and perhaps he grabbed her and squeezed her arm maybe a little too hard, but never any hitting." According to the boys, it was actually Linda's obsession with horses that had led to all the financial problems the family was facing. And Todd was upset because he found out that Linda had taken out a line of credit for $25,000 to support these 31 horses that she had on the property. Her son Trenton said the horses were always a topic of discussion and that they were always going broke trying to take care of them. But Linda said she doesn't know where her son got that idea from because she was actually making money on this business where she was boarding horses, not losing it. Linda admitted that she and Todd did fight a lot over money, but only because of Todd, who was in about $75,000 of debt by the beginning of 2007. She said he had not paid their mortgage in months, and he just blew through money. Linda said she worked in a dialysis facility and had to be at work at 5 a.m. every day, but Todd didn't like to work, and all he did was sell his gloves and his hunting suits, but he would constantly be asking his mother for money. And Linda said she was frustrated because she never could understand why Todd wouldn't just go to work. And if you recall, Todd's mom did testify at the trial that she gave her son tens of thousands of dollars over the years, and other family members had also loaned him money as well. So there might be some truth in that.
Right. According to Linda, on the day of the fire, she and Todd had been fighting about money, but things quieted down and Linda went to the gas station to top off her tank and to get some milk for breakfast. Linda said that the clerk saw her near the back of her car because she was getting her winter gloves and coat from the back, not because she was pumping gas into a gas can. Linda went home and got her kids up and told them to go to the movies because she didn't want them in the house while she and Todd were arguing. And she was actually planning on moving out of the house that day, but didn't want the kids to be there watching it all. At about 3 p.m, Todd was watching TV in the living room while she was doing laundry in the basement. She noticed a towel that smelled like fuel from when Todd cleaned up after fixing their furnace, so she washed the towel. At some point, Todd screamed from upstairs, and when Linda ran up, she saw that the living room was on fire. Todd's upper body was on fire, but she couldn't see him very well because of how smoky and bright it was. Linda panicked and ran to the front door to escape. She had no shoes on and didn't have her cell phone. Once she got outside, she realized that Todd hadn't followed her out. but she knew the keys to the van were inside of the van, so she got in hopes of driving to a neighbor's house to get help. As she's about to leave, she sees Todd emerge from the house and she screams at him to get in the van, but she said he wouldn't. So she got out and tried to help him, but Todd was on fire and was trying to pull off his clothes. Linda was yelling at him to lay down, but Todd didn't do that. So she got back in the van, but says she lost sight of Todd and didn't know where he went. Linda tried to back out of the driveway, but she was stuck in that muck and her tires kept spinning. So she drives around to the side of the house where it was sandy in hopes that she could get enough traction to back out from there. At this time, Linda noticed that her neighbors had arrived and she began screaming at them that the kids weren't there, but Todd was. They looked around for him at the front of the house, but they couldn't find him. They ended up finding Todd lying by the side of the house, not very far from where Linda had stopped the van. He was on his back, alive, but badly burned. Linda told 48 Hours that he was looking at her, but he couldn't talk. Aaron, the journalist conducting the interview, said to Linda, quote, "You must know that it's very difficult for people to believe that your husband is burned in a fire, he escapes, he's still alive, badly burned, and then you hit him with a car. What, you just happen to have that kind of bad luck?" End quote. And Linda said, bad luck doesn't even describe it.
Wow. When she was asked what she thought started the fire, Linda said that she thinks something came out of the fireplace, such as a coal or a log, and that the floor started on fire. She was also asked about her affair with Chris, and she said that they didn't start seeing each other until after Todd was dead, which we know isn't what was said in the trial, because Chris testified that they had been romantically involved since the summer of 2006. But Linda now, during this 48 Hours interview, is claiming that Chris had actually lied on the stand, but she said she doesn't really know why. She suggested that perhaps it was her friend Kate who had convinced Chris to lie about when their relationship had started. Again, I don't know what reason either one of them would have for that.
Right.
Linda's daughter, Ashley, revealed new information during her interview with 48 Hours. She said, quote, "I've never gotten to talk to anybody about this, so it's really hard for me." She said that on January 6th, the night before the fire, Ashley, who was then 20 years old, had called the Stermer home to speak to her mom. And she said Todd answered, and he said, quote, "Your mom's not here, but I had a conversation with God. I'm not decided yet, but one of us is leaving in a body bag, and it's either me or your mom," end quote. On June 10th, 2020, prosecutors announced that they were going to give Linda a new trial. Linda's defense requested that the testimony from Sergeant Leroy and from one of the jailhouse informants not be allowed in the retrial, but the request was actually denied, so that decision ended up getting appealed to the Michigan Court of Appeals. The defense said that Leroy's investigation didn't adhere strictly to the NFPA guidelines, and that made his testimony unreliable and inadmissible. They said that scientific principles had now changed over the years since the case had been investigated, and that now, in hindsight, the things that Sergeant Leroy did would be considered inappropriate by the fire investigation community. It was ultimately decided that Sergeant Leroy's testimony would be allowed at the retrial because the court said there was no reason to exclude it and that failure to follow the NFPA guidelines to a T doesn't automatically make his opinion as a fire investigator irrelevant. And as for that jailhouse informant, the court ruled that Linda's attorney had effectively cross-examined them at the first trial, so her testimony from the transcripts was also considered admissible in court. As of today, Linda remains out on bond while she awaits her new trial, which will most likely be taking place next year. They have set a date for jury selection to begin on March 25th, 2025. And I have to say, this is a case that I seriously cannot wait to see what happens in her second trial because, oh my gosh.
I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to come in the second trial because I have a lot of questions still. You said you had some thoughts on it. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I kind of don't think she set the fire.
Yeah.
Like, I feel if I was a juror, I would have a hard time convicting her or voting to convict her of murder or of arson because I feel like they said, it's not an overwhelming case. And I feel that there is enough doubt that specifically points to Todd starting the fire for me to at least think that I wouldn't be comfortable convicting her of murder.
Yeah.
And the like
Here,
lack of gasoline on her clothes. I feel like that is
yeah.
also a big deal to me because if they're alleging that an accelerant was used, I do have questions about how she could be completely clean. I mean, I guess you could suit yourself up in like a whole entire rubber suit if you wanted and then take it
Yeah.
off. I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know. I have a hard time saying that I'm sure that she set the fire.
No, I agree with you. I think a new trial is definitely deserved, and I feel like I could understand if they don't convict her this time. I don't know. I mean, obviously, neither one of us actually know what happened. My issue kind of comes in with the defense, at least on the last trial, kind of being like, oh, he might have accidentally done it. Like, was it arson or did he accidentally do it? That's where I kind of have a hard time. Why?
Right.
That doesn't make sense. If you tell me he was mad about this affair and all this stuff and this money and everything, and he's already done these, likely committed these 2 other arsons, then yeah, it makes sense to me that he got mad and he lit it on fire, didn't realize he had accelerant on him. He's on fire. Now she's running out. I can follow that. But when it's like he might have kicked something over, that's where I'm like, I don't know. You guys were fighting all day. Like,
Right.
I feel like something probably
Right.
happened. The hitting him with the van thing, it sounds
That
like that was just chaos.
That's what
I
I
don't,
think. Yeah. And
yeah,
I was talking to my husband about this case a little bit and what he asked, because I was telling him I wasn't really sure, but I was kind of thinking like I could really see, it going either way, or like I could see either scenario being the truth of what happened. I could see that he set the fire because he was, angry about the affair and about all the financial problems they were having. But I can also see, I mean, why they would say that she was the one who had set the fire and had
right,
tried to do this whole thing. And then I told him about, getting run over. And because I'm kind of with you, I feel like, and like she said, like bad luck doesn't even describe it. But like, I feel like I sympathize with that a little bit because crazy things like that have happened to me. Obviously not in this serious of a
right.
situation, right? But like where you're already in a crazy situation and then something even crazier happens and you're like, of course this would happen right now. Like how
Oh,
on
yeah.
earth is any of this happening? And just being like, what kind of dumb terrible luck is this? But my husband asked me, he was like, well, did he get run over with the front of the van or the back? And when I told him that it was the front, then he said he doesn't know. He said, because how do you not see him if the argument is that he was on fire and collapsed, like you didn't see him collapse in front of the van, like, then you hit him with the front, like it would be more, he was saying to him, he would think it was more of an accident if she ran over him from the back. So I
Yeah,
don't know,
that makes
all of that
sense.
kind of plays into, it's just like, I don't know.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. The lacerations and stuff, like, I don't know. That's also, he had other injuries, which, of course, hitting him with a van could be some of those, specifically like the ribs being broken. But like the lacerations and stuff, when they talk about hitting him in the head with a frying pan, that also makes sense to me too. So I'm very glad this is going to a new jury. I think if they acquitted her, I would understand, at least based on what we know.
Yes.
But hopefully hopefully they get it right.
Yes.
Whatever right is, because we have no idea.
Yeah.
We have theories, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine for the whole family, like, and this is just kind of hanging here,
Yeah.
like over them for years and years and years. So I'm glad it'll be next year, and hopefully they get justice, whatever that looks like.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Melissa, let's turn the page and do last thing before we go this week. I feel like we've been having a lot of our little chit chats on Patreon and haven't done so many last thing before we goes, but I'm excited because you told me that you have something this week.
I do. If you wanted to hear our little weekly mini-sode conversations, that's at patreon.com/moms and mysteries podcast. We do weekly little chat sessions. But for today, we are going to do a game. Mandy, this game is called Turkey or No Turkey, or Turkey or Not Turkey. So you'll tell me, you say turkey if this is a Thanksgiving thing, and you say not turkey if you don't think it's a Thanksgiving thing.
Okay.
So Mandy, first one is wishbone.
Turkey.
Great. Fruitcake.
I'm going to say turkey, except I don't personally agree. My grandmother always made fruitcake at Thanksgiving. That was like her thing. And I never would touch it because it's just not very yummy to me. So
it's like a lump.
Yeah.
It's just a lump. So you're saying turkey. That ChatGPT said not turkey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Pumpkin spiced hand sanitizer.
Turkey.
They said not turkey.
What?
Gravy scented candle.
Turkey.
I'll give you that one. Eggnog.
Not turkey.
Good job. Candy corn.
Not turkey.
Great. What about gobble-okie, which is like Thanksgiving karaoke?
Definitely turkey.
Way to go. And I actually want to see that. What about a turkey wearing sunglasses? I don't know where this would happen.
This is Florida, baby. Turkey all day.
All right. Not according to ChatGPT. Mandy, hot chocolate. Turkey, not turkey.
Not turkey.
Very good. Inflatable yard turkey. This is Florida. Dress as Santa.
Turkey.
I'm giving you that one, even though it said that that's not right.
That's a thing.
2 more. Ice Spice Apple Spice perfume. I don't know. I don't know where I got that one.
Ice Spice Apple Spice.
Perfume. Yeah. I
Not turkey.
took the wrapper and good job. Okay, last one. Turkey-shaped Jell-O mold.
Turkey.
Great. Okay, Mandy, you got 9 out of however many I did. I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad. But anyway, I thought that would be kind of fun. And I'm excited. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We're sharing one of a missing person and hope you guys will check that out.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys, we will be back
next week, sort of.
Next week, sort of. Same time, same place, different story.
Have a great week.
Bye.